Just waiting for that toe tapping intro to fade out. Anthony Broom here with Clayton Safey, Chris Ballas. The Wolverine is back. You know, this is one of our, I don't want to rank shows. Anytime you rank something, someone gets diminished, but maybe my favorite show to do of the year so far because we have football to talk about. The time for speculation is over. The time for hot takery, predictions, whatever you have, it's gone. We've seen Michigan play a football game, 34-17 win over New Mexico in the opener. And we're here to recap that, put a bow on that as we turn here to Oklahoma week. As I said before, Chris Ballas, Clayton Safey here with me, as we are every week at 6 p.m. here on thewolverine.com and in your YouTube and podcast feeds after that. Fellas, welcome back. It feels good to get that first one under your belt.
It does. Hate night games. I'm still trying to figure out, my body's trying to figure out the clock here. And I know Clay loves them, but God, I hate these games. And it's going to be even more brutal next week when we have to get on a flight after 2 hours of writing. But hey, if they win, I don't give a damn. So going to be a fun one next week, I think, guys. And all the consternation about the offensive line and the defense didn't do this and the defense didn't do that. But I got a pretty good feeling about this defense against John Mateer and this Oklahoma offense. I'm sure we'll be talking about that. So there was a lot of stuff to like in the opener. It wasn't perfect, not supposed to be, but it was a good start in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll take Michigan football. I'll take football. They kick it off at noon. They want to kick it off at 9 in the morning. They want to kick it off at midnight. I will take it any time, and had a great time. What a weekend of football, including last night with Notre Dame and Miami going down to the wire. We got some football tonight. And then we have NFL this weekend as well. Lions Packers when we're traveling back from Oklahoma. So huge game of the week in college football against Oklahoma. I am extremely excited to see what this environment's all about. I think On3 has it ranked as the number 18 toughest place to play in college football. Michigan, I think at 16, something like that. But either way, all those in the top 25-ish are really, really good. And this is going to be an iconic one. And the first time these two teams have ever played on a college campus. So I'm excited. I'm ready to go and obviously break down Michigan's opener too, which was a really nice performance.
We'll get to all of that here, of course. First, we have to say we are sponsored by our good friends over at homefieldapparel.com. First off, if you've been listening to us at all, you should have already re-outfitted yourself for the football season with the great products that Homefield has to offer. Of course, it's vintage-inspired college football gear, a great Michigan collection, about as good a collection, we're biased, but of any school that they have, and they have plenty of them. If you got, a couple weeks from now, Michigan's going to play Central Michigan, and some of you guys are fans and alums of them, and outfit yourself with both collections. Michigan's is super high quality, though, whether you need, I'm looking at bomber jackets on the screen right now, sweatshirts, T-shirts, crew necks, joggers. It's all there. I love that, the hockey hoodie, the Maze one that they just scrolled down from. Yeah, that's right in the top left corner there if you're watching on our YouTube channel. So quality stuff across the board. Cannot say enough good things about our friends over at homefieldapparel.com. So grab your Michigan gear now. Head on over there and support our friends in the heart of Big Ten country over at homefieldapparel.com. Well, I guess to start, we will put a bow on the New Mexico game. And for me, this is the third time I've been on the Wolverines airwaves, so to speak, since the game ended. Chris, it's your second time today, having done the show with Doug Skeen. So, Clayton, I'm going to go to you first. I don't know how many watches of the game you've done to this point, but my hypothesis when we were there watching it live is that a second viewing would be much more forgiving than the first. Not that the first was terrible, but I came out of that feeling a lot better the second time around. How did you think of it?
Well, I just finished my fifth. I'm just kidding. No, just a couple. No, I thought it was really good on Saturday night. And I thought it was even better than I thought, like to your point, after going back and watching it again. But I mean, Bryce Underwood, number 19, I thought he put on a show in his first game. And it's kind of interesting. I was reading something earlier from CBS Sports comparing Bryce Underwood's opener to the first start for other number one quarterbacks in their class going back. And one thing I noticed is that all these quarterbacks, since 2018, they went back to, their first start was in year 2, other than DJ Lagway last year came in because Graham Mertz was injured. He started a game against Samford, then ended up becoming the full-time starter later on in the year. And then Trevor Lawrence in 2018, but that was a few games into the season as well. So Bryce Underwood, the first one in a while to start his opener. And I think that's important context because it's not common to see a freshman do this, right? It's only the 4th in Michigan history, the first since Tate Forcier, who apparently is going to reach out to Bryce, but Bryce probably has so many people that reach out to him. He probably didn't even realize that Tate might have, but I thought he was fantastic. I thought he was smart with the football, made some incredible throws throughout the night, the 2-minute drill at the end of the first half. You also had the beginning of the third quarter, the little flip to Marlon Klein on a play action pass when they're backed up on their own 6-yard line. Just the trust they have in him already. Excited to watch him against a much better defense, a much tougher environment to play in. But, I mean, that was the story for me. I think the defense played really well, could have been a little bit better, a little cleaner. Special teams, a ton to clean up there outside of the kickoff team and the field goal team. I'm sure we'll get into more of it, but that's kind of the overarching thing. I think obviously the story was Bryce Underwood. He delivered in his first game, and, it's just going to be a fun few years. It's all I can say. That was a fun watch. I mean, when they got up 14-0 and the texts start rolling in from people watching, across the country about just, whoa, this is fun. And I was like, yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, I'm hopeful it'll be a fun few years, more than just the Bryce Underwood show, right? It's going to be about what they put around him. Got to get him some really nice receivers. They've got solid receivers now, decent receivers, but I want to see what Bryce Underwood can do with some guys that should be playing at Michigan at this level. I'm talking to Braylon Edwards type. I'm talking to David Terrell, some of the better ones that have played here. It's been a while since we really had that number one guy here that we saw that was really elite. And to me, everybody's talking about the defense, right? And they moved the ball up and down the field, and I didn't see it that way. I really thought, more than anything, I thought it was more vanilla than I thought it would be, and kind of what I expected it to be. They didn't come after them a lot with the blitz. They didn't have to. Everybody's talking about the lack of pressure. I don't know what game they were watching, but that ball was usually out in 2 seconds. And if it wasn't, then those guys were getting there with 4 guys, sometimes 5. So against 6-7 blockers, and when I was watching the game. So Bryce Underwood's unbelievable, more than I ever would have expected. And I knew he was good, but the presence out there, number one, as calm as he was for a first game for a true freshman in Michigan Stadium, it didn't faze him in the least. And you could tell that this is a generational talent. As Jason Eck, the coach at New Mexico, said after the game, I'm going to be able to tell my grandkids that I played against Bryce Underwood someday, because he is going to be a pro, guys. He's going to be a first-round pick. The effortless way he throws the ball, the poise, the where to go with the ball, and the accuracy was really the big thing that got me where the ball was. Even when it was incomplete, it was where a defender couldn't get it. So I'm excited about that. The offensive line was okay, better at least than last year in the first game, and I saw a little bit more fire. I thought they came off the ball harder and they played with a little bit more aggression. So that was okay. There's some things to clean up, but again, it's a first game, guys, with 5 guys playing together like that. So to me, it was fine. And got to clean up special teams. It's been a disappointment really for the last year now, and it needs to be better. There's going to need to be some accountability there, because you cannot have drop punch. You cannot have a punter that's giving up 20 yards on a return by not going and catching the ball. And you can't have fumbles on returns. I believe it was actually Clay's dad on our message board who said, worries me having a freshman back there. He might fumble. And guess what? He fumbled and gave him 3 points. Can't do that against good teams. But I do like a lot of what I saw. I like the personnel. I thought the defense looked really fast, and I do think they'll be better in week 2. I'm excited to see what they do against John Mateer and that Oklahoma team.
Yeah, I think the takeaway I came out of it, especially from a defensive perspective, right? Because Bryce Underwood's getting all the hype, all the accolades, and I'll get back to him. But defensively, I think it was imperfect, but with a purpose. It seemed like they were more concerned with getting a lot of guys in there and rotating, keep guys fresh, getting a look at some of the other guys, like your Josiah Edmonds of the world, your Dominic Nichols of the world. Cole Sullivan had to come in for Jaishawn Barham, which that he is going to be out the first half at Oklahoma. That appeal did not go through. So we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. But I think the mistake a lot of people make when they look at this game is they compare it to what this team's final form was when they beat Ohio State at the end of last year, when they beat Alabama in the ReliaQuest Bowl. It's a completely different team. And I know a lot of the guys are the same on the defensive side of the ball, but offense, it's a ground up rebuild, right? Around, if you want to use the NFL term, what the equivalent of a number 1 overall pick would be. So for a baseline overall, I mean, if you want, I'd probably give offense's performance a B, defense probably C plus. We know both sides probably much more capable than what we saw, but I think the highs to me outweighed the lows. Whereas last year's opener, Mikey Keene and Fresno State are driving in the fourth quarter to make that a 1-score game until Will Johnson picks him off and takes it to the house. This felt a lot more wire to wire dominant, even though there was a little that lull in the middle of the game. So I feel like from a team health and a upward trajectory perspective, we are starting this year with this version of this Michigan football team in a lot better place. And the quarterback situation is doing a lot of the heavy lifting there. But comparing openers, I mean, I think it's night and day. Maybe not complete 180 from last year, but a lot better start to this season than last year's.
And can we give New Mexico a little credit here? Their game plan, number 1, their quarterback, Jack Lane, who was an absolute warrior, got the crap kicked out of him, right? Half the time. And I bet he spent a lot of time in the ice tub when he got back because that kid was getting hit. And as we saw the Jaishawn Barham thing, that's ridiculous, guys. They're going to have go without him for a half because of the ridiculous targeting call, but just one of many hits that this kid took. And I really think that's a well-coached football team. Something's probably going to happen a game in a week or two where New Mexico doesn't look so good or something like that. And everybody's going to say, see, Michigan should have blown them out again. First game, I really thought they were well prepared with their throw it where they ain't offense. At times that Michigan brought blitzes, they knew exactly where to go with the ball. And these are the same two guys in Eck and Lane that went into Oregon last year and played them to a 24-14 game that was, I think, a fourth quarter game, if I'm not mistaken. So, and I like that coach, right? So we'll see. But again, a first game, there are going to be some things to iron out, but love what I saw from especially Underwood, Dominic Zvada, guys, unbelievable. And again, the rest of it is the special teams. The punting game needs work. That to me is the biggest concern coming out of that game is will the special teams cost them a big game this year? Because if you're going to beat some of these teams on the road, USC, Nebraska, Oklahoma, I know Nebraska didn't look great, then you're going to have a really good special teams day too.
Yeah. And if you're Andrew Marsh next week, if you're still back there at kick return, don't take it out. I kind of hate taking it out these days because you get it to the 25. I know that there's some reward there, but a lot of it, you don't see too many broken all that long. But I agree. I was going to say the same thing about New Mexico. I'll also shout out Dorian Thomas, their tight end, who is awesome and probably going to be in the Power 4 next year if he has eligibility left, or maybe the NFL one day. And then he was a warrior too, playing hurt. I think he got banged up running into a camera or whatever it was on the play where Jaden Mangum shoved him out of bounds, and then he was limping around. But that's a good team for a team that has 75 new players on that roster. I thought they were impressive, but just a couple more things in the offense in general. First impressions of Chip Lindsey's offense, definitely a lot of RPOs. I think it was 19 was the count according to Sports Info Solutions. 13 of them were runs, 6 of them were passes. And the first down unpredictability, 14 runs, 14 passes. Michigan passed overall more than they ran in this game. It's a little bit different, right? If you've been watching Michigan for a long time, like all of us have, it's just a different way to go about calling a game from an offensive coordinator perspective. It's not run, pass. It's not incomplete on first down, auto handoff on second down just to get a few, right? Like they did last year every single time. It felt like. It was, incomplete on first, get back at it, let Underwood throw it on second down. And that they were still good in short yardage. They were good at the goal line. They scored on their first attempt down there. Justice Haynes, thanks to Blake Frazier and Max Bredesen and all those guys. They were good on 3rd and 2. Jordan Marshall picked that up. They were good on 3rd and 1. Jordan Marshall picked that one up as well. So I thought those were some encouraging signs, and again, just a different way of watching a game. And then the defense, until the last drive when it was 3s and 4s in the game for Michigan defensively, only 3 drives over 25 yards. One of them was aided by the bad Jaishawn Barham call, a terrible call on the sideline. TJ Metcalf's in coverage. A guy doesn't catch the football. They hurry up and snap it. That helped that drive as well. And then the first, that was in the third quarter, but in the first quarter, the time they drove down, they used a couple trick plays, including on the touchdown, which was on 4th down. So could have gone a little differently. It didn't matter. The game was not really in doubt in the second half at all. So I liked a lot of what we saw from the linebackers. And that's even with that when Barham was out of the game. I loved what we saw from the safeties, Metcalf, Hillman, Mason Curtis, the defensive ends, including the third stringers like Nate Marshall, who had the huge hit on the Cole Sullivan interception. I thought was really good. Saw a bunch of young guys play in this football game. I think double-digit freshmen or close to it. So yeah, and Anthony, to your point, 31 guys played defensively. 27 of them played 13 or more snaps. So they were rotating a lot, probably, definitely more than you will in a game like Saturday night at Oklahoma. So they, created some depth, got some guys experience, got out of there with a comfortable win. I think there were a lot of positives and still a ton to clean up, which is encouraging too, because they can play better than that, and it was already pretty good.
Yeah, and I didn't see anything that registered as a major red flag or a concern. Like I know that Saturday night Michigan's defense will be as ready as they possibly can to play that game. We know what this group's fastball looks like. Given that I say there's no carryover from year to year, but that team in the ReliaQuest Bowl, the defense is essentially the one that'll be out there Saturday. And I think they're a little deeper and a little better than that. So you use a game like the opener to get a little more clarification on what your rotations look like. You pare down your substitutions. Obviously they're going to have a travel roster, so everyone's not going down to Oklahoma. And you roll the ball out and see where you get better from there. Offensive line, the intel out of camp was probably a little bit better pass blocking than run blocking. I think the film bears that out. I think the game grades on PFF bared that out. What it was nice to see is that, despite, Bryce Underwood completely in command, things he could do better. Thought maybe we'd see a few more throws in harm's way, but you look at PFF, no turnover worthy plays. I'll take that out of a freshman quarterback. So I think as this year goes on, we're going to be talking more about Bryce Underwood just as a good quarterback. And you've said this before, Clayton, just as a good quarterback that's leading this offense, as opposed to, wow, he's pretty good, compared to other freshmen. And he was one of 2 freshmen this weekend in the Big Ten to start a game, Malik Washington being the other at Maryland. So you love to see the big play potential there. You love to see a guy like Justice Haynes show you why Michigan made him the priority they did in the transfer portal. So all of these pieces individually, pretty encouraging. And when it all comes together, this is going to be a pretty darn tough team to beat moving forward. And now all you can really ask for is that improvement that you do make from week 1 to week 2. And it's going to be tough on Saturday, but again, you just want to see where they're at. It's a good litmus test, especially now you have this leeway to figure out what you are and still maybe make the playoff, if you can figure things out down the stretch. So overall, pretty encouraged. You can nitpick things here and there. We'll see what the next version of this team is. But any other final thoughts on the opener?
Yeah, the secondary, Jair Hill getting a little grabby was a little bit of a concern. I really want to see Rod Moore back out there. I don't know if we will for a few plays on Saturday. I think it's possible from what we've been hearing. It's trending that way. We heard the same about Hogan Hansen. He was actually a last-minute scratch last week, which was kind of weird, right? Wasn't he out there warming up? And then I think they scratched him. He must have had a little bit of pain still or something like that. But kudos to Marlon Klein for stepping up, and kudos to Anthony Broom for saying, I really think this guy's going to take it to the next level when, there were people that as late as last week, some tight ends in the building, former tight ends in the building say, we'll see if we got that number 1 guy. Marlon Klein stepped up and really looked the part, guys, as one of those big, fast, athletic tight ends. He's getting open and making the big plays. He had the one behind him that I thought maybe he could have caught. It had a little bit of juice on it, but, that's a tough catch, and it was perfectly placed again by Bryce Underwood right where it had to be. You had a linebacker in play there. I don't think people realize. They said, oh, well, he threw it behind him. Well, there was a linebacker he had to throw it behind number one, and he didn't want to get his guy killed, right? He had a guy closing on him too. So I thought that was a good throw. But as Josh Jackson says here in our super chat for 199, how great it is to have a functional QB. It's more than that, Josh. How great it is to have a guy out there who is, I get your point about last year not having the functional QB, but this kid is special. I don't care. You know what? They're going to say it's just New Mexico, and how is he going to play against Oklahoma and stuff like that? You can tell, right, when a guy has that it factor, and he's got it. And everybody in the country is talking about him for a reason. So, again, if you can get Rod Moore back out there and get those guys settled down in the secondary, I think that's going to be huge. And I think we will have that consistently in Big Ten play. That's going to be fantastic. To me, that's it. That's the only concern I have. I really think that this team has a lot of pieces, and that if they continue to grow like they did at the end of last year, I think this can be a really damn good football team.
I'm glad you brought up the secondary because I agree. Jair Hill, the pass interference, he allowed the touchdown as well to Thomas, who is, again, a very good player himself, but still he was in coverage there. Josiah Edmond was probably in the game a little too early, considering your other guys were healthy, but they were trying to get him some run. I think he missed a tackle, committed a penalty as well, I believe, if I'm recalling that correctly, or got beat in coverage. So, yeah, the depth. I mean, if he's your third corner, and it was like, okay, why is he in the game at this point? The depth is still a bit of a concern at corner, in my opinion. Safety looks good. I really liked what I saw from TJ Metcalf at safety and nickel. But you're going to be in nickel more. If a guy goes down at corner, you're going to have a lot of DBs on the football field this weekend compared to this past week when a lot of times you had 3 down linemen, the 2 edge rushers, right? You were in just kind of your base defense, which it's their base defense, but they're typically not in that against teams that are going to throw it more, like Oklahoma. Sherrone Moore talking today about how they spread the field. So you're going to be asking more out of the DBs. Getting Rod Moore back would be big. I wonder at what level he could play when he does return. But yeah, just communication wise and in confidence and swagger wise, and having a captain back there, I think would be huge. And to get his feet wet, right? That's kind of why you hope at the very least he could play for CMU, because then he has a little bit of a rhythm going into the Nebraska game. But if he plays against Oklahoma, then he'll even have a week ahead of that. But yeah, it seems like defensive backfield very good in some areas, running the football, tackling maybe the coverage left a little bit to be desired, but it was kind of a weird team they played this week. It'll be more traditional this coming weekend and tougher to stop. So this is going to be a huge, huge test for those guys.
A lot of people asking over there, by the way, about Shamari Earls. Guys, you're not going to believe it, but he came out and was so excited. He actually did a backflip and hurt himself. 2 backflips. I was like, all right, who's that doing the backflips out there? It was Shamari Earls. And I don't know if he came down wrong or something, but it looked like they were attending to him after that and probably cost him a chance to play. So young guys, let that be a lesson to you. Don't be overzealous and be smart. How many guys have we seen get hurt in a celebration huddle or a celebration mosh pit or whatever? So that seems to be what happened. We forgot to ask Sherrone more about that today, but we will. But that was pretty damn crazy.
Well, it reminded me of Stephen Tulloch tearing his ACL during a sack celebration,
right?
Like 10 years ago. So
yeah,
not that I don't think Shamari Earls is that injured, but it's just be careful.
Bryce Underwood used to do flips coming out after they'd run out on the field at Belleville before the game, and I was a little worried because I think it was his interview with Rich Eisen earlier this offseason when he said he might do a flip before the game. I'm like, don't do that. Do not risk anything. And I'm sure they probably told him that. And he did not do one either. So it was just Shamari Earls. But yeah, I think Shamari will probably save that for, a different time going forward, considering that, yeah, he's one of the few young DBs that did not see the field, even though he's probably the furthest up on the depth chart.
Yep.
Yeah. And also for Bryce, don't throw blocks either. Now I kind of loved it in that isolated moment because your first game, that plays. Like that is something where you're like, whoa, okay, he is a freshman, but he gets it. He's in the culture, so to speak. So
I loved it.
Hey, you know what? We saw JJ McCarthy throw a block at Ohio State in 2022. you got to have a little grit to you to play that position at this school. I guess my last thought on the opener is I'm not going to, I know the spread was 34.5 points, whatever it was. We came into this game, the Jason Eck coach team that he had at Idaho, which was in a lot of ways almost essentially the team he had on the field on Saturday night, played a pain in the ass opener last year at Oregon, where it was a 24-20 or a 24-14 win for the Oregon Ducks. And everyone's like, what's wrong with Oregon? What's wrong with Oregon? I'm not saying this is what's going to happen with Michigan, but Oregon would go undefeated in the regular season, win the Big Ten, and be the number 1 seed in the college football playoff. So, and just an opinion from the weekend too, a lot of teams that I think will be very good played really weird openers, including number 1 versus number 3 this weekend, Texas, Ohio State. I think both those teams will be much better than they showed on Saturday. So it's a long season, week to week. We'll see what happens there. Of course, as we move into week 2, Sherrone Moore spoke to the media on Monday. Of course, a lot of questions about returning to his alma mater. Michigan's heading, of course, to Oklahoma. Excuse me. On Saturday night. Injury updates. You just hit on Rod Moore. No concern about Andrew Sprague. He cramped up at the end of the game. Blake Frazier got some run at right tackle late, but that's what it was. They were just being cautious with him. Outside of that, we talked about the Jaishawn Barham targeting that really should not have been targeting, but even then, this rule is stupid. You shouldn't miss a half a football game for it. He is not going to be out there for the first half on Saturday. So those were among some of the bigger takeaways. What did you guys pull from Sherrone's press conference?
I really couldn't care less about his Oklahoma ties, and I don't think he could either at this point, right? I know he wants to coach in that game, but all the questions, for newspaper writers and stuff like that, they want to make a big deal about going home and write their fluff pieces about it. And to me, this is about Michigan versus Oklahoma, and it's the same thing to Sherrone Moore. And you could kind of see it on his face, and you could kind of tell in his answers. Somebody even asked him, are you going to be calling coaches on the Oklahoma staff this week or something like that, which I thought was ridiculous. Yeah, of course you're not, right? You're concentrating on getting your team ready to go play a huge game that could determine the direction of your season. So when he was talking about the offensive line, you could tell he was okay with the progress. He wasn't, gushing about them. And again, we get people on here that are saying, man, they look, or on the message board saying they looked as bad as they did last year. We've got really good football minds and guys that played offensive line here, and Doug Skeen and John Jansen saying just the opposite, that they were encouraged by some of the things they saw. It wasn't perfect. Again, this was not the 2021 or 22 line or whatever, it was, it's a group of guys that's still getting used to playing together. But I thought there were some encouraging things in terms of backs, not getting tackled for loss, right? Last year, we saw a ton of guys getting hit in the backfield before plays even got started. We didn't see that. Again, just New Mexico. We'll see what happened against Oklahoma, but I thought they played with a purpose, and I think Sherrone Moore did too. Other than that, not a whole lot. The Hogan Hansen thing, he talked about him and thinks he's probable for Saturday, which is pretty big, in my opinion. I'd like to see some more 2 tight end sets. I think Klein and Hansen out there together are 2 pass catching threats, more than I would have anticipated of Klein before the year. And we've heard Hogan Hansen compared to Jeremy Tooman in style, who was on the 1997 team, was an outstanding tight end. So if that gives you another pass catching option in place of an average receiver, for example, then I'm all for it. So that's what I'm excited about. And guys, it's going to be a long week. It's already slow. Monday's going slow. I cannot wait to get there and see what this team looks like in that environment, see what Bryce Underwood does in that environment. But you can tell that Sherrone Moore thinks he's got his quarterback. That he was everything that we expected him to be. And Sherrone Moore obviously felt the same way.
And Sherrone Moore was at Oklahoma for 2 years as a player too. Butler Community College before that. He was at CMU longer than he was at Oklahoma. He was at Louisville longer than he was at Oklahoma. He's been at Michigan a hell of a lot longer than he was at Oklahoma. So it's not to say it doesn't have a special place in his heart, but I agree with you. He's been answering those questions since really even before Big Ten Media Day, but especially there. And he's brushed them off every time. He said his emotional attachment is to the Michigan players, not, a school now. And he said he loved his time there and all that, but totally agree there. You could tell he was a little, he pushed back a little bit at, almost criticism from wherever he's heard it or seen it about the offensive line, saying that they're working extremely hard, and kind of his tone telling me that it's just not going to be what it was last year. No, we'll see, right? You have to go out and prove it, but it just feels like they are more confident in that group. I mean, even the backups that came in, they said Nate Afobe played not quite as good as Brady Norton being a little bit better, but Blake Frazier came in. I thought acquitted himself really well, especially on the goal line. Like you had even backups come in and play some good football there. I liked that. And I'll also say this, he didn't talk about it. And I'm glad the question didn't come up because it's just one game, but I'm not really worried about Jordan Marshall either. I think Justice Haynes clearly separated himself as the number one back, at least for now. And he was awesome and he had more juice and he definitely looked like the better guy on Saturday night when he had the football. But, there were also a lot of times when Justice Haynes was kind of running into that same type of wall that Jordan Marshall was. And then he had some big holes on some of his bigger runs, and he made those happen himself as well. Jordan Marshall didn't really have those. The one time he got free, it was a holding on Andrew Sprague, but 2.8 yards per carry for Justice Haynes on early downs, first and second down, when you take out his 2 long runs, which you can't really do. I know it's idiotic, but just to compare to 2.6 for Jordan Marshall, and then he picked up the 2 short yardage. So you kind of have to factor that in when you look at yards per carry. But I still think they got 2 great backs. I guess that's a little off topic, but I thought that I think Marshall's going to have some games where he's more productive.
And can we just mention how much different the offense looked? And I wrote about this after the game. I know I'm not going to call it finesse, right? But when you're throwing that touch pass to Marlon Klein from the shadow of your own end zone, and you're like, what the hell is going on here, right? Normally that's 2 runs, a short pass, or maybe 3 runs, under Jim Harbaugh, or even last year, where you're trying to
that's where you're running twice and just getting better field position for
exactly. And instead, you're not only are you not doing that, but to pull that play out and what a pass, touch pass to Marlon Klein.
In the footwork, it was play action.
Yeah,
to pull that off. Yeah,
it was fantastic. And you never knew, guys, with the personnel, you never knew what was coming. It didn't matter. Max Bredesen was on the field, didn't mean jack squat, right? You didn't know where that ball was going. You didn't know what direction it was going. You had dummy pulls. You had a lot of things to confuse a defense. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that Oklahoma's going to have to prepare for. And I'm sure that I don't think they even made it to page 2 of the playbook, maybe page 2. But the fact that they accomplished what they did, and it looked like it did, with a true freshman at quarterback in his first game with a new offensive coordinator in a pretty complicated offense, guys, I think really bodes well for what this offense can be, especially if some of these young receivers step up.
And Max Bredesen was awesome. That's worth noting.
He was.
I can't believe we hadn't brought him up yet, but he was incredible.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a Max Bredesen appreciation podcast. We don't.
I know that's why we got to keep that up. He's got to get the low man trophy.
Since we spelled his name wrong on the cover of the magazine last year,
we got to wear that. But it is what it is.
I didn't.
I think we smooth that over.
Hey, not me. Come on now. We are a team. So if one guy screws up horribly to the point that it's a fireable offense, then we all screw up.
Right. And we did fire that individual, so we're all good.
Exactly.
With the Chip Lindsey conversation, of course, it goes back to Bryce Underwood. But I think what was most impressive to me is everything in the passing game was on time and on task. Like even when you just look at, there's a play, I think it was Jay Du who had tweeted it out over the weekend, but Bryce Underwood, just the wherewithal to do a fake handoff, then flip his hips quick, fire a crosser over the middle of the field to Marlon Klein. Like that's stuff that juniors and seniors struggle to do. So the fact that they're starting from this type of baseline, and again, I know no one in Michigan circles is going to get sick of Bryce Underwood talk. Opposing fans might say we're overrating it, but I think with Underwood and how Lindsey wants to run this thing, you saw him as a distributor, and you saw them kind of use that full menu of playmakers that they had available to them too. So they threw and targeted 8 guys in the passing game, and there wasn't really a locking onto a first read. It was, hey, take the snap, make your read, make a decision, make the throw. And gosh, I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment, but the velocity at which the football comes out of Bryce Underwood's hand is, that's a Joel Zumaya fastball if I've ever seen one from a quarterback.
Stupid. It's unbelievable. And some people are going to say, well, he needs to take a little bit off the ball. And that's probably true, right? At times, just because I think he's more advanced than some of the guys he's throwing to. You hate to say it, but it's absolutely true. You're looking at, a first round NFL draft pick here coming up. So, but I have, again, no complaints about that. And I am interested to see how Oklahoma's defense plays him, right? Are they going to drop people and maybe sit in zone and make him pick them apart and make decisions where, you know what, if he's running the ball and rolling out and stuff like that, he's not going to have those open receivers to throw to like that. So are they going to be less aggressive and ask him to make more decisions? I think Brent Venables will have a good game plan for him. So this, in a lot of ways, is the litmus test, fellas, of this, at least early in the year. But there have been posts on our board saying, well, if they lose this game by 7 or 10 points or something like that, it's really bodes terrible for the rest of the season. That's absolutely not true. This is the second game of the year. He's going to continue to improve. The offense is going to continue to improve. And I think that defense is only going to get better too. So win or lose, this team has a ceiling, in my opinion, that's borderline playoff. Now, if they win, guys, if they win convincingly, then you're looking, okay, this is probably a pretty decent bet as a playoff team. So there's a lot at stake in that respect, but this is not an all or nothing proposition on Saturday.
There are no all or nothing really until maybe the last week of the season anymore in college football. But no, totally agree. And the good thing is about facing this Venables defense is Chip Lindsey's not afraid to get those run pass options off the sheet. And if they're going to sit back, like he's just going to hand it off to Justice Haynes and just play the numbers game. It's going to be a simple read and he's going to hand it off. He's going to pull it. He's going to throw. There are going to be some read options. Really, there were some times, I'm surprised we haven't mentioned this either. I forgot to mention it. There were some times, too, where maybe the run game wasn't as effective because they clearly did not want Bryce Underwood to run on Saturday, and he's going to have those opportunities. He had those opportunities in this last game, had room to run, and didn't. He's going to run against Oklahoma. There's no question in my mind, and that's going to open things up. I
was just about to say
answers. When you have this type of talent, you have some answers to what a guy like Venables is going to bring to the table. That's what makes it an exciting matchup because Michigan's got the talent to counteract anything they throw at them. They just got to go out and execute, and it's going to be a good chess match and, talented players on both sides. It's just going to be an exciting matchup. Sorry, AB.
I think that's kind of what I was working towards, too. When you talk about how quickly and how decisively Underwood is already making decisions, I think that if they drop guys into coverage and there's those lanes there, I think he's not going to hesitate to pull the ball and run if he has those opportunities to do that. So it's exciting. And you know what? It might even be in the range of outcomes that they get blown out or lose by a couple scores. I don't expect that. But if that happens, I'm not going to be any less encouraged about what this team can be and what the pieces are. Now, we're going to go to the super chat here from Daniel Schutz for $4.99. He says, how often do we use two tight ends and Max Bredesen at fullback and pull a guard and employ gap scheme blocking? Love you guys and appreciate you.
That's a good question. I haven't broken down the film and really analyzed it. I do know, in speaking to somebody close to it, we actually had something inside the fort on Friday about, are they going to do a little bit more zone blocking this year? And can you still be physical when you're doing that? And a guy who'd played in the NFL for several years, he goes, yes, I think you will see more of that this year. And he said that physicality is a mentality, right? And he said, I've played in both. And he said, I can tell you that it makes no difference in terms of physicality. Now, I did question, for example, when we were watching a 4th and 1, 4th and half a yard at the 45, up 14-0, why Sherrone Moore didn't go for it. I asked him about that today, and he said, it was just kind of a gut feeling. We were up 14-0. Our defense was playing so well. I didn't want to give them a short field, and I understand that, right? But do I think that means that they don't have really confidence that they can smash when they need to smash and get that yard? I don't think that means that at all. So, but to answer your question, there will be some of that. And again, to what extent, we don't know. We're just starting to learn this offense ourselves, but there will be, you'll see a lot of gap blocking. You'll see a lot of zone blocking as well.
Yeah. And the numbers were 15 zone runs to 11 gap scheme runs on
there you go.
Saturday. They weren't, the last few years, they have not typically been over 50% zone, but there have been some games like that when you look back. And as far as two tight ends and gap scheme, I don't have that exact number, but they did have 14 rushes last game with 2 tight ends on the field. So they're still using that, right? They still mixed in a lot of guys. They were subbing a decent amount. Bredesen was in, Samaj was out, Goodwin was out, that sort of thing, and then vice versa. So you're still going to see them be pretty multiple and throw a lot of different looks at opponents. And when you have a guy like 44 out there, you build your offense around him. I don't care what. And again, we are a pro Max Bredesen podcast, so I'm obligated to say that, and I really believe it. He's that much of a difference maker. So you're going to see that type of stuff happen too. And look at all the big runs on Saturday. He was a big part of it. The tight ends, the wide receivers had some nice blocks. Marsh, Goodwin, those guys. So they know what they got to do, and they're important for the run game.
Where'd those stats come from, Clay? Where'd you find those?
The zone and gap we got from Pro Football Focus, and the multi-tight end sets from Sports Info Solutions.
Great stuff.
When it comes to the Oklahoma stuff, because we had a comment over here, Illinois State ran for 117 yards, and OU knew they couldn't pass. I'll just say this: I'm looking forward to. I found the game copy of this online. I'm looking forward to. I was going to start watching it tonight into tomorrow, and probably have some sort of report on that game and what I saw, probably either Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever time allows for. But it's going to be interesting to see. Now, again, they didn't stop the run super well, and they didn't run the ball well either. Now, John Mateer almost threw for 400 yards. Granted, the same caveats apply. It's the opener against an FCS school. Now, Michigan's was against an FBS, but with a lot of players from the FCS. So excited to dive into that and see a little bit more. But John Mateer, early impressions, he's a cool customer. He's not exactly Baker Mayfield, but he brings that kind of skill set and swagger back to the Oklahoma offense, which they haven't had under Brett Venables. So really, really going to be interested in diving in and seeing, maybe even watch a little bit of Washington State from last year to see what this guy does. But, Wink Martindale and the guys will have a plan for that as well. How about we go into questions here, last 15 minutes or so? We ready for that?
Yes, sir. Let's get to the super chat.
All right, super chat here from, I know that logo anywhere. That's Go Blue 982, who says, great Big Ten showing last week. Thanks, Northwestern and UCLA for dropping the ball. I know it's just week 1, but which team will be most improved and maybe a cause for concern for Michigan, OSU excluded? I'm going to turn you guys to this, but I'll also say Utah absolutely did put UCLA in a trash can and roll them down the San Gabriel Mountains, as I said would happen. So thoughts on that? I don't know how much you guys watched of other Big Ten games, but your thoughts on that question.
We did actually pick that game, didn't we? We both thought Utah would win that game. And so, you know what? I'll say the first thing, great Big Ten showing last week. I don't give two shits about the rest of the Big Ten anymore. It's funny. All this conference, go Big Ten. They can all lose for all I care. And but when it comes to which team will be most improved, I watched Michigan State. They had a good first few plays, good first few drives, and then after that, they looked like the Michigan State of old. I don't think they have a ton of playmakers. I thought the receivers were decent, right? Aiden Childs looked like he was still panicky a little bit back there, but I don't think they have a running game, and it's really hard to tell because that Western Michigan team is terrible. USC is the one that I've said from the get-go, guys, is going to be a really tough game, probably the toughest road game on the schedule. I agree with that. I still agree with that and still believe that. So, to me, that is going to be a really, really tough game out there. Nebraska, really, when you look at the personnel, they look small in places to me. That's a team that I think that Michigan should be able to move the ball on. So even in that environment without Sherrone Moore, they didn't really impress me that much. So other than that, I guess we could talk about Purdue, right? but they played a nobody, but they probably exceeded expectations.
A lot of teams played nobodies. It's so hard to judge because, like you said, Anthony, earlier in the show last year, when Oregon wins by 10, and again that was a 3-point game with less than 6 minutes to go against Idaho, Jason Eck, and all those guys that played Michigan at New Mexico the other night, and then they followed that up. I believe the next week was Boise State. No one knew exactly how good Boise State was. And it was like, what is wrong with Oregon? They go undefeated, win the Big Ten, all this stuff. So it is hard to judge. I agree. I think Nebraska, when you take a guy as big as Ty Robinson off the field, who's now a smart draft pick by Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles, you're going to look smaller, and that's been the big concern for them coming into the year. And I thought, definitely could envision Michigan running on them. Michigan State's defense didn't allow any points, but again, what is really Western Michigan? USC put up a lot of points. Maryland, their score looks good. I didn't catch any of that game. The quarterback, I guess, played really well, but he's a true freshman as well. And yes, UCLA disappointed. I did pick UCLA in that game. One of my two much maligned quarterbacks I picked on Thursday's show showed up. Carson Beck was the guy. Lamborghini owner. Nico Iamaleava was not. 43-10 Utah. That is tough, and I am an idiot for picking that. That is an obvious terrible pick, and I'll own it.
Clay's plays. But
it was not in Clay's plays. But
it wasn't okay. Well, there you go. It was not in Clay's plays, just to be clear.
I didn't bet it. I picked it for the show purposes.
Okay, I got you.
For entertainment purposes only.
Please, folks, 1-800-don't gamble, right? So just to be clear, we have our bad picks too.
This is tough. I guess if I had to hone in on one, maybe Washington's opener kind of affirmed some of the things I knew about them. Damon Williams had a really nice day, 226 yards and a touchdown, only 6 incompletions. He also ran for 68 yards. Jonah Coleman had almost 200 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Denzel Boston, a good day as well. I think that has a chance to be one of the best quarterback, running back, wide receiver trios in this conference. And I think that game on, I believe it's October 18th, is going to be a war for Michigan,
but
with Jed Fish coming in.
Walty allowed 21 points, though, the D coordinator.
That's true. But
I have no idea what Colorado State is, so I can't even.
Yeah, it's impossible.
What was the final in that game, guys?
38-21.
38-21.
Okay.
Nebraska played the most competitive game against a relatively decent group of 5 or group of 4 school, whatever it is now. Rutgers played a MAC team.
Yeah, no, I know. I was going to say, don't disrespect the MAC. Rutgers was in a dogfight with Ohio.
I won't disrespect the MAC because CMU, talk about grit and biting kneecaps. Huge win Saturday night. Right. Friday night against the San Jose State, whatever they are, as 14.5-point underdogs. So
Spartans?
Those would be the ones that stick out right off the bat. Let's go to one from the board, and we'll go with our buddy Wolverine Steve, who says, what are your 3 biggest keys to winning in Norman besides scoring more points?
No turnovers, right, is number one. To me, those you go on the road and you count the turnovers. The more turnovers you have, the less chance you have to win. That's just science, football science, right? Number 2, don't let Mateer get comfortable. I think if you can rattle him a little bit, I don't think they're going to run the ball on this Michigan defense. I don't. So rattle him a little bit. Don't get beat on those little screens that you saw against New Mexico. I think then I think they'll be fine. Number 3, special teams is, to me, in any road game or any big game, they got to be better. Hudson Hollebeck's got to be better. You can't be giving up hidden yardage in the punt game. You can't fumble a kickoff, right? JB Brown, his group's got to be better here. I wasn't that impressed with him last year, other than Dominic Zavada. They've got to be better. And to me, those are the 3 the biggest keys of this game.
Yeah, and I think one thing that maybe have went, and I know they didn't take many shots in New Mexico, but something that, went a little unnoticed in Michigan's game is they were playing soft and they did not allow any big plays. Now, again, it was New Mexico, but limiting those against Oklahoma is going to be important. They have a pretty good receiving core. John Mateer, as Anthony, you mentioned, can kind of run around, create some plays with his legs to give him time to throw downfield. So limiting those is going to be really important. I think you can run on Oklahoma probably, and we'll break more of it down, later on in the week. But 4.5 yards a carry, 117 yards for Illinois State FCS team over the weekend. And Oklahoma, had a really tough time running the football themselves. Their longest rush was 12 yards, came from Deion Burks, a wide receiver. Longest running back rush was 11 yards. Jaden Ott only had 1 carry for -3 yards. Is he fully healthy at this point? I think he was their 3rd string running back out of camp, and he was supposed to be the game changer portal pickup. So there are some questions with them too, and excited to kind of hear from people who cover them to see how that opener really went. Because again, the theme of all this is with some of these games, 35-3 against Illinois State doesn't tell me a lot. I need a lot more information on that. I'm going to watch it and all that, but just interested to dive more into it.
I'm going to go with, I don't have 3 keys yet because I don't know enough about them, but it starts and ends with how they defend John Mateer. Now, in 2 games against Power 4 schools last year, I have some stats for you. Texas Tech, John Mateer goes 9 of 19 for 157 or 100. I'm sorry, 9 for 19, 115 yards. That's 47.4% completions, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Washington, we know what that Washington team was last year. 17 for 34, 245 yards. That's 50% completion percentage, a touchdown, and an interception. I think my biggest key to the game would be that you force 2 John Mateer turnovers. That's a key to victory for me heading into that one. So,
which probably means you win the turnover battle, which probably means you probably win the game.
I agree.
Works for me. We will go to Wildy20 on our message board.
Hold on, I think we got a super chat over there.
Did we? These have not been showing up for me. So let me. Josh Jackson says, "Do we let Underwood loose on his feet next week?" I don't know if they let him loose from a play calling perspective, but I think they will give him the license to get out the back door if he doesn't see something.
Yeah, I do. I think so too. And I think maybe you'll see him. Yeah, he maybe keeps a couple on the read option or something like that. I think you'll see him scramble a little bit more. I thought he had some room to run at times on Saturday, right? But one thing I love most about him is how he keeps his eyes downfield and scans this field for his receivers. One thing I like even better, guys, is that the receiver's open. When he did that, right? When there's nobody around him, around the receivers, guys were getting a little bit of separation, whether that's schemed open, whether that's guys running good routes. That's something that we haven't seen in a while where, okay, there's nobody around this receiver. Channing Goodwin on the route, the 3rd and 14, for example. And when Bryce is scrambling and he's looking downfield, how many times have we seen in the last couple of years, or last year anyway, when there are guys running alone downfield and the quarterback couldn't see him? Bryce Underwood has got unbelievable vision when he's moving. So, but I think we will see a little bit more, and I can promise you that they will give him strict instructions to get his ass down so he doesn't get hurt. But he is not that kind of guy, man. He's the guy that kind of wants to throw a shoulder into you and really get those extra yards and make a statement. So hopefully he'll be smart. But I do expect him to, whatever the line is going to be, or the on yardage, rushing yardage for him, I'm going to take the over on Saturday.
And a couple of things with that, you would much rather have a young quarterback who feels like he wants to stay in the pocket, when he can, rather than a guy who's scrambling a little bit too early. So I was encouraged by that too. And, at the same time, he's going to have to make some throws on the move, and he did make some throws on the move, but maybe a little more off script, having to run around a little bit out there. But I think they are going to turn him loose with his feet in this game. I think especially in the red zone when it gets a little bit tighter and you want to even up the numbers a little bit more. So that's going to be an element that Oklahoma hasn't seen on film other than in high school, which is all over that high school film. But they haven't seen it in college yet. And they're going to have to kind of prepare for it without it being on college film. And they're going to have to prepare for a lot, offense and defense. So it's going to be exciting. But, yeah, Michigan probably didn't show nearly what it's going to show on Saturday. And now they got to go out and execute it. But they're going to have a lot at their disposal, including Bryce's legs.
I wanted to bring this one up from Otis because I think this is a good point. It kind of reminds you a little bit of what Cignetti did at Indiana last year, and I'm not saying it's on the same level or anything, but you got a lot of winners on that team that have played a lot of winning football. And Lane, to me, earned my respect in a big way. But that was a 3-point game, I believe, in the 4th quarter, if I'm not mistaken, 17-14 before Oregon put that one away. So I think that's an underrated New Mexico team. That's something that we probably should have thought about before we made our picks. But you know what? All credit to them. I thought they were well prepared and well coached.
Well, and I think we all picked New Mexico to cover, so give us some credit.
Yeah, it was close if we didn't. Yep.
Who got the staff pick win? Did we ever check that?
No idea. I couldn't care less if I didn't win. So, and I know I didn't win.
Right. That's why I don't care.
Exactly.
Clayton, did you have something?
I was just going to say I had New Mexico to cover, but we should read Otis's comment for people that are just listening. The Idaho team with quarterback Jack Lane took Oregon well into the 4th quarter last year. A lot of that team transferred to New Mexico. In addition, they added several Power 4 transfers as well. So, yeah, I totally agree with all that, but figured we should read it.
We just showed that. Well, we just showed it on the screen, too. So
Go Blue 982 for $2.
If you listen to the audio version, you don't see it.
That's a good point.
Go Blue 982 for $2 says, anyone else glad to see Alabama going low tide? Yeah, Michigan broke them. I think you can say that now.
I think Clay was the first one who said that on the message board, or was it Anthony? One of you
That
guys.
was not me.
I get you guys
I
mixed
said
up.
it in the press box, but yeah.
Yeah. Michigan broke them. So it's what a shame, right? So it is funny, right? How NIL has kind of changed the game, and boy, now that it's a more level playing field, I think you're going to see some of these programs struggle. Kalen DeBoer is a good football coach. At the same time, it doesn't always make you a great fit. And there are, like I said in the box on Saturday, there are only a handful of guys that have won everywhere they've been, where you're like, this guy's a guaranteed winner. And guess what? Urban Meyer isn't one of them, for example, going to Jacksonville and failing miserably. There's Jim Harbaugh, right? How many guys? Pete Carroll, who did it at both levels. So, but it's in terms of college coaches, right? Nick Saban was obviously a football god. He had a lot of inherent advantages there. So we'll be watching DeBoer closely, though, and it does not break my heart that they sucked.
Well, first of all, Urban Meyer kicked a kicker. You can't do that. And second of all, did you see DeBoer's press conference today when someone asked him, well, you said last week you guys had a great week of preparation and whatever. And he's like, this week? And the guy's like, no, you said that last week. He's like, I said that? And then he was like, man, like we did, pretty much saying like we really didn't. It's just tough, man. I mean, I don't know what it is. He has won everywhere he's gone till now, but it's a different beast down there. And when you're following a legend, it's tough. So yeah, I do not feel bad for Alabama fans who are probably freaking out. I should head over to Bama Online, the message board, which you can access with the subscription to the Wolverine, and check out what they're talking about. I was on the Notre Dame message board last night. It was great.
I'm going to take a couple quick ones here. From Wildy20, who says, who has the better stat line, John Mateer or Bryce Underwood? I think it will be, it depends on what better is. John Mateer will probably throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. But will he win the game? I don't know.
Whoa.
I don't know what it's going to take to win the game.
303 touchdowns, probably. I
don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there.
I disagree with that. I think if he does that, I think they win. So hopefully that won't be the case. But that's a tough one. It really is. And so much of it, guys, depends on the defenses, right? So is the Michigan defense that we expected to see going to show up and make life miserable for Mateer? And again, as Anthony said earlier, his track record against the P4 teams. So I'm going to go with a wash, and I don't know what that looks like, but I think you're going to get solid quarterback play out of both of these guys. But a lot of it, again, is going to depend on the offensive lines too. And I know that Oklahoma has a lot of questions about theirs. I was looking at their board a little bit. Their fans, by the way, are a pretty reasonable group of guys and a pretty knowledgeable group of fans from what we've heard and what I've seen compared to some of these other fan bases out there. So, but I don't know how it'll look, but I think that offensive line is going to be a big part of the numbers, obviously, for the quarterbacks.
That's the difference. Reading a message board on a Monday versus a Saturday night. You get the irrational takes maybe later in the week. Yes. But no, Underwood is going to have better stats. Bryce Underwood will have better stats than John Mateer.
Okay, there you have it. There's one more I wanted to take from, where is it here? Mike Tim Robb on our message board. He says, does Michigan have a designated call for a challenge guy in the booth? If so, where was he or she on the catch that was not a catch? And if not, why not? And what are the official booth review guys doing there?
I was going to ask Sherrone that today. We ran out of time. They did not get to my last question, but I will ask that. I saw Wink Martindale running down, asking for a timeout, asking somebody to call a timeout. And when I was watching the film, go back and watch it and you'll see, okay, he wants a timeout so that he can say, look, we need to review this. So I don't know if they do. I think in the past they have. Jim Harbaugh has. So I would assume that Sherrone Moore does too. But that was ridiculous. That in a big game, if that had been a big game and they had let that slide, that would have been really disappointing. And it's one of the things that I pointed to about, okay, their game day ops still need to be a little bit better. So, but yeah, it's a great question, and we will find out the answer for you.
Yeah, I think you got to fight for the players there. You got to challenge that. Mm-hmm. I don't even really understand how the challenge works. Can I be completely honest? But yeah, you can call a timeout at the very least. And if they get one look at that play, it was clearly dropped.
Yep. Can't have it. It's got to be better. Better process there. That's important moving forward. Good show for us tonight as we're back in the battle rhythm of football season. We'll, of course, be back Thursday to preview the showdown with Oklahoma. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Use that promo code UM1, which is going to get you 2 months of access to the Wolverine for a single dollar. That's UM1. Take advantage of it. At this point, that's going to get you in the meat and potatoes of football season. So it's the best deal in America, as our Clayton Safety would say. For Clayton Safety, Chris Ballas, our producer Megan behind the scenes, I'm Anthony Broom. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you again later this week.